There is something very special about old pubs. The smell of aged timber, the soft creak of the floorboards underfoot, the way the walls seem to hold the echoes of laughter, of stories told over centuries. They are places of gathering, of warmth and refuge, and more often than not, of ghosts. Across the UK, from remote coaching inns on windswept moors to centuries-old taverns in the heart of a bustling city, ominous tales of the supernatural are as common as the ale itself. Ask almost any landlord of a pub that's been standing for more than a few generations, and they'll usually have a story to tell. Of footsteps heard when the bar is empty, of glasses moving by unseen hands, of disembodied voices, or a chill that descends long after the fire has gone out. Ghosts, after all, are not only the dead who walk among the living. They are also memories made manifest, the weight of a past that refuses to be forgotten. In pubs, those memories are not hidden away. They're part of the very fabric of the building. The laughter of a long-dead regular, the landlord who never left his post, the servant girl still waiting for her master's call. These are not just apparitions, but echoes of the pub's former life. To step inside is to step into a space where time folds in on itself. And nowhere is that layering of life and death more palpable than in the East End of London. Here, among the narrow streets and gas-lit alleys, history feels particularly close to the surface. It's a place where poverty and crime and the struggle for survival once defined the rhythm of daily life. The ghosts of the East End are not just the imagined spirits of folklore. They are the real and remembered presences of people who lived, suffered, and sometimes met their end within a few steps of where we all walk today. And at the heart of that history stands one of London's most infamous pubs. The sensational 10 Bells. At the junction of Commercial Street and Fournier Street, in the heart of London's East End, stands a pub that has watched history unfold for more than a century and a half. The 10 Bells is hard to miss, a striking wraparound building whose tiled facade catches the light of passing traffic and the soft glow from the windows within. Step inside and you're met with warmth and bustle. Candlelight flickering across polished wood, the murmur of conversation and the scent of beer and old brick mingling in the air. Today, the 10 Bells is a thriving, modern pub, lively, friendly, and full of character. Its walls are lined with Grade 2 listed ceramic tiles and murals that echo scenes from Victorian life. Costermongers and tradesmen, ladies in bonnets, and the ever-present figures of the working poor. Every surface feels as though it's steeped in stories. And in a way, it is. Over its 3 floors, the pub offers snug corners, rooms for private gatherings, quiz nights, and the occasional DJ set. All of it a cheerful continuation of a long tradition of people coming together to escape the world outside. But beneath the laughter and music lies the quiet hum of history. The faint sense that these walls have seen far more than any ordinary public house. Just a 5-minute walk from Liverpool Street Station, the 10 Bells stands directly opposite the grand white facade of Christchurch, Spitalfields. Nicholas Hawksmoor's Baroque masterpiece, its great steeple casting a long shadow over the narrow streets below. The pub has faced that church since 1851, serving the men and women who lived and worked in one of Victorian London's toughest districts. Back then, the East End was a world of contrasts. Crowded lodging houses and thriving markets. Relentless, grinding poverty. And restless ambition. The upper floors of the 10 Bells tell that story still. A warren of narrow corridors and tiny rooms where itinerant workers once rented a bed for the night. From those very windows, they would have looked down over the market stalls of Spitalfields and the spire of Christchurch rising above the fog. It's easy to imagine the creak of the floorboards, the shuffle of boots, the whispered conversations as they stirred to face another day. The 10 Bells has stood through centuries of change. Wars, poverty, gentrification, and rebirth. And yet, some part of its formidable past seems to cling on, immovable and unwilling to let go. Because for all its warmth and welcome today, the 10 Bells carries a dark and sinister legacy. One that has kept its name very much alive in the annals of crime and folklore alike. The pub's fame, or perhaps it's more accurate to say its infamy, rests on its association with one of the darkest chapters in London's history. When, in the autumn of 1888, evil prowled its smog-filled streets in the form of a merciless killer. Known only as Jack the Ripper, his true identity remains one of the great unsolved mysteries of the modern age. At least 3 of the Ripper's victims were known to have frequented the 10 Bells. And given its location, just a few minutes' walk from several of the murder scenes and where the women lived, it's almost certain that all 5 of the so-called canonical victims would have used the pub and known it well. women for whom this pub was, for a brief time, a place of light and respite amid endless and exhausting hardship. Annie Chapman was one of them. Annie Chapman was born Annie Eliza Smith in Paddington in September 1840 or 1841. The records seem to differ on which was the year. She grew up in a working-class family, one of many children, her early years marked by both affection and adversity. When she was around 23 years old, Annie suffered the first of several family tragedies, when her alcoholic father, George, shockingly took his own life. In a cruel, poignant twist of fate, Annie would eventually meet her own end in a way that eerily echoed his. A few years after the death of her father, Annie married John Chapman, a coachman who was employed by a wealthy family. Together, they raised 3 children and lived a respectable life for some years. But this was not without its challenges, as their son, John, was born with a physical disability, one that needed constant medical attention. The couple eventually placed him in a residential facility, but one close to the family home. When their daughter Emily died of meningitis at the age of 12, both John and Annie increasingly turned to alcohol to numb the pain of their immense grief. Annie's life bore the weight of crushing grief and physical strain, having also carried and given birth to 5 stillborn children. Annie was arrested on a number of occasions for public intoxication, and in 1884, she and John decided to separate. John Chapman was clearly a considerate husband, as he continued to pay Annie a small allowance while raising their surviving daughter as a single father. When John Chapman sadly died in 1886, his means of support obviously ceased, leaving Annie in desperate circumstances. With failing health and little means, Annie ended up in Whitechapel in East London, taking cheap lodgings where she could and just doing her best to survive. It is said that she worked as a flower seller and crochet worker, in addition to sometimes working the streets. In the early hours of the 8th of September 1888, Annie was turned out of her lodging house in Dorset Street for failing to pay her rent. Cold, hungry, and desperate, she sought refuge in the 10 Bells, spending her last few coins on gin, perhaps to numb the cold and despair. Witnesses remembered her there, head bowed over her glass, probably trying to forget what awaited her outside. Annie left the 10 Bells at around 5 o'clock that morning. Half an hour later, she was seen talking to a man in Hanbury Street, just a few minutes' walk from the pub. By sunrise, poor Annie's body was found in a backyard nearby, showing signs of a brutal attack. Her death would mark the second in the series of killings that would come to define an era of sheer terror. Then there was Elizabeth Stride, another regular at the 10 Bells. A Swedish-born woman who had made her way to London in search of a better life. Elizabeth Stride was born Elizabeth Gustafsdotter in 1843 and lived on her family's farm in the Swedish countryside. She spent her youth working in domestic service before moving to the city of Gothenburg. Like many young women seeking independence, she found work as a chambermaid in several hotels. City life proved harsh, and she eventually found herself working the streets just to get by. In 1865, Elizabeth suffered heartbreak when she gave birth to a stillborn daughter. A year later, looking for a fresh start and better prospects, she emigrated to London. Still in her 20s, she married a ship's carpenter named John Stride. For several years, the couple ran a small coffee shop in Poplar, East London, where Elizabeth was known to be a kind and hard-working woman. Unfortunately, after illness and financial hardship, the business failed, and the marriage also faltered. Following the collapse of her marriage, Elizabeth experienced serious hardship. By Christmas 1881, records show she was a resident of the Whitechapel workhouse, suffering from bronchitis. She lived in various lodging houses and told those she met that her husband and children had died at sea. Perhaps her own way of softening the truth of a life marked by struggle and loss. Elizabeth received some financial help from the Church of Sweden in London and formed a relationship with a labourer named Michael Kidney. Their relationship was chaotic and volatile. He was often charged with assaulting her, but Elizabeth did not pursue the matters and failed to attend in court. Elizabeth Stride was well known at the 10 Bells, perhaps a little too well. Just months before her death, she was reportedly asked to leave the pub for disorderly behaviour. On the 29th of September 1888, following another argument and separation from Kidney, Elizabeth had been paid 6pence for cleaning rooms at her lodging house. That evening, she went out and was seen in the company of several acquaintances. At around 12:30 a.m, a police officer saw her speaking to a man carrying a package. Only half an hour later, tragic Elizabeth Stride was found dead in Dutfield's yard, having suffered a violent attack. Her death marked another victim in the series of murders that would terrorise the whole of Whitechapel. And then, the third of these unfortunate women who were regulars at the 10 Bells. Mary-Jane Kelly was the youngest and thought to be the last of Jack the Ripper's victims. A woman who, even now, still haunts the imagination of London's East End. Mary-Jane remains an inscrutable figure, as very little is known for certain about her early life. Much of what we do know comes only from what she told those closest to her. According to her own account, she was born in Ireland and raised in Wales, though many who knew her noted that she had no discernible accent, only adding to the mystery of her ancestry. Mary-Jane told of marrying at the age of 16 to a miner named Davis, who was tragically killed in an explosion. She claimed to have worked in a high-class brothel in the West End of London and once travelled to Paris with a client. Even her real name is uncertain, as records show no trace of a Mary-Jane Kelly at that time. She was also known to sometimes use the name Marie Jeanette Kelly. It was not difficult to disappear in Victorian England, and it's likely that she chose an alias when moving to the capital for a fresh start. For whatever reason, her fortunes appear to have declined, and Mary Jane found herself in Spitalfields, the rough heart of 1800s London. At the time of her death, Mary Jane was thought to be in her mid-20s. Friends described her as a well-spoken, warm-hearted, and strikingly beautiful young woman with charm and intelligence. She loved to sing and dreamed of a simple life in the countryside or by the sea, her laughter and optimism perhaps helping her to survive the cold reality of life on the tough streets of Whitechapel. The sad truth of her life was very different from that of her dreams. Mary Jane shared a tiny, squalid room in Miller's Court with her partner, a porter at the nearby fish market named Joe Barnett. Their relationship was often turbulent, off as much as it was on. Like many marginalised women at that time, Mary Jane turned to prostitution. She was a familiar face to the market porters and traders around Spitalfields Market. Just a short walk from her room, the pavement outside the 10 Bells was known as her patch, a place she guarded fiercely and where she would drink, socialise, and seek clients. It's chilling to imagine that the man who would kill her might have watched her there, under the same lights that still burn today, waiting for his moment to strike. Inquest records show that on the 8th of November 1888, the night before she was found, Mary Jane and her friend Elizabeth Foster spent a few hours in the 10 Bells, sharing drinks and conversation. Mary Jane left just after 7 o'clock that evening. Later, Joe Barnett and a couple of other friends briefly visited her at Miller's Court. Then a man she knew well, named George Hutchinson, claimed to have seen Mary Jane at around 2 a.m. He said he had watched her return to her room in Miller's Court in the company of a well-dressed man. But many believe the implausible level of fine detail in Hutchinson's account made him an unreliable witness, leading some to question whether he even saw Mary Jane on that night at all. The following morning, Mary Jane was found brutally murdered in her room, in one of the most horrific and savage crimes that London has ever known. Even among the total horror of the Ripper murders, the severity of the attack set this one apart and sent shockwaves through the whole country. The stories of these women are inseparable from the fabric of the Ten Bells pub itself. Their laughter, their despair, the sounds of their voices would once have filled its space. But while their tragic deaths keep their names alive in our history books, the truth is that their struggles to survive were shared by countless others who once passed through those doors. And though time has moved on, something of them remains. A lingering melancholy that seems to hum beneath the surface, as if the building itself remembers. Every creak of the stairs, every flicker of the shadows on those old tiled walls carries with it a whisper of the past. And at the Ten Bells, it seems that the past still whispers back. For over a century, the Ten Bells has served locals, labourers, and strangers alike. Within its compelling interior, generations have come and gone. Through poverty, world wars, redevelopment, and all manner of life's upheavals. Known as one of the most haunted pubs in London, it has been a meeting place, a refuge. And, as we've seen, for some, one of the last places they were ever seen alive. Its reputation will forever be sealed by its association with the Ripper murders, and it's a connection that has continued to draw fascination ever since, even from Hollywood's best. In 2000, the Ten Bells found itself under the cinematic spotlight during the production of From Hell, the film adaptation of the graphic novel inspired by the murders in Whitechapel. Although the production was based in Prague, filmmakers recreated the haunting atmosphere of the Ten Bells for key scenes, capturing its distinctive character, its sense of unease, and its central role in the case. Accompanied by Jack the Ripper expert and former police officer Donald Rumbelow, actor Johnny Depp, who played Inspector Frederick Aberline in the film, visited the Ten Bells as part of his research. He was said to have a deep personal interest in the case and a wide knowledge of its details. Given its link with one of the country's, even the world's, darkest fascinations, and most famous unsolved cases, the Ten Bells will never quite shake off the ghosts of its historical past. But from a paranormal point of view, there is so much more to the place. What haunts it is a question that hangs in the air, like the faint scent of tobacco and gin that seems to indelibly cling to its tiled walls. And the horrific Whitechapel murders aside, the Ten Bells was no stranger to issues of death and tragedy during the Victorian era. Throughout the 19th century, the pub was regularly used as a site for official inquests. The coroner and a jury of local householders would meet at the Ten Bells. Before hearing testimony from witnesses, they would all examine the body of the deceased, which was brought to the pub and laid out in one of the upstairs rooms. All of this took place while the bar remained open for business downstairs in the normal way. But before we step into those haunting accounts, there's one key part of the building's history we need to understand. Many sources refer to the Ten Bells as dating back to the 1700s. And in a sense, that's true. A pub did stand on the site in the 18th century, at what was then number 12 Red Lion Street. This is shown marked in orange on the 18th century surveyor Richard Horwood's incredible map of London. It was published in 1799 and shows every street and building in the city. But in the 1840s, the old street layout was swept away when Commercial Street was cut through Spitalfields and the original pub was demolished. The 10 Bells we see today is the Victorian rebuild of 1850. Here it's marked on the map in green. So just a few metres away from the original, where the address changed from 12 Red Lion Street to 33 Church Street. Of course, Church Street was later renamed as Fournier Street. Now, as we know, hauntings often cling to a location's deeper past, echoes of buildings long gone. In light of this, it's worth considering whether a significant event at nearby Christchurch in the 1980s could have any bearing on spiritual unrest in the area. Between 1984 and 1986, archaeologists carried out one of the largest post-medieval crypt excavations ever undertaken in the UK. During that work, nearly 1,000 individuals were exhumed from the vaults beneath the church. These were everyday residents of Spitalfields who had been buried there from 1729 through to the 1850s. Men, women, and children. For those of us open to the paranormal, such an event raises a difficult but absorbing question. When so many burials are disturbed, even carefully and respectfully, does something of the soul stir? Did such disruption, after so many years of quiet rest, cause unsettled spiritual beings to reach out to those nearby? But at the 10 Bells, almost all the reported paranormal activity appears to belong very much to the Victorian era, the very period in which this building took shape. Over the years, its staff and patrons have witnessed a host of strange and unexplained happenings. Those who lock up at the end of the night and wander its empty rooms often say that silence never truly settles at the 10 Bells, and that there is always a sense of someone watching, unseen but felt. There have been many reports of ghostly activity on the upper floors, the same narrow hallways and old rooms where drifters and the displaced once laid their heads. It's there that the figure of a man dressed in dark Victorian clothes has been seen repeatedly by staff, customers, and even workmen. In the 1990s, some of the staff lived on the premises and occupied rooms on those same upper floors. On many occasions, they complained of waking in the night with a sense of heavy unease. They describe seeing the apparition standing at the side of their beds, or sometimes even lying next to them. As they cried out in shock, he would immediately just vanish. What a terrifying thing to experience. One witness described catching sight of his tall form standing behind her, reflected in an upstairs window, but when she turned around, there was nobody there. Now, for many years, the story has been that this Victorian apparition is the ghost of a former landlord named George Roberts, who was brutally murdered with an axe. Not at the 10 Bells, but in a cinema, almost 200 miles away, in Swansea. It's said that in 2000, while clearing the cellar, a landlord discovered a small wooden box containing a wallet bearing the name George Roberts, and inside it was a folded newspaper clipping reporting his death. How this box found its way to the 10 Bells remains a mystery. To muddy the waters, there appears to be no surviving record to even confirm that this discovery ever even happened. And Swansea's first ever cinema wasn't Victorian, but post-Edwardian, and didn't open until December 1913. It's also a little unclear as to why it is believed that, having been so violently killed so many miles away, poor George Roberts would choose to return to the 10 Bells when his life was so cruelly taken in an entirely different city, and presumably after he had left London. Could it be that George maybe returns to haunt the 10 Bells because it had played such a large part in his life? It would be a fair question to ask. Except, a look at the records shows us that there is no evidence of a George Roberts ever being connected to the 10 Bells. There was a man from Swansea named George Roberts, who was horribly murdered with an axe in a cinema, but in Dover. And he was not killed in the Victorian era, but in 1941. If indeed there was such a wallet, found at the 10 Bells, could it have once belonged to George Roberts's killer, who perhaps fled to London after the killing and found work there? Unfortunately, this also doesn't help us to connect the mysterious link, as the 18-year-old killer and employee of the same Dover cinema was quickly apprehended. With his family home in Gillingham, it seems that 50-year-old cinema manager George Roberts had the habit of sleeping in his Dover office. On the night of the 3rd of July, 1941, 18-year-old projectionist Leslie Hammond returned to the cinema and lay in wait for Mr. Roberts, armed with an axe. After bludgeoning him around the face and head, Hammond threw poor Mr. Roberts out into the backyard through a window in the ladies' loo. He then dragged the body down into the basement, where it was discovered the next morning. Claiming that he did not know why he had attacked Mr. Roberts, apart from sometimes feeling funny in the head, Hammond was convicted and was sentenced to death for his crime. Luckily for him, his sentence was commuted to life imprisonment the day before he was due to be executed. Just how the unfortunate George Roberts of Dover came to be named as a former landlord and Victorian ghost of the 10 Bells and Spitalfields may never be fully explained. So, if the ghostly figure, dressed in dark Victorian clothes, and seen by so many people at the 10 Bells, isn't George Roberts, who could it be? My guess would be former landlord John Waldron, and I'll tell you why. In 1851, the licence for the brand new 10 Bells that we see today was granted to 59-year-old Edward Waldron. a widower who had moved to Whitechapel from Ireland with a number of his extended family. His young nephew, John, lived at the pub, helping to run it as a barman. But Edward's time as landlord proved to be short. He died just a year later, in 1852. With his death, the licence and the responsibility for running the Ten Bells passed to John Waldron, who was still in his 20s at the time. And John stayed. Not for a few years, not for a decade, but for the next 37 years. John married while there. He and his wife Eliza raised at least 6 children there. He steered the pub through one of the most turbulent and infamous periods in Whitechapel's history, when the Ten Bells became a landmark in the Jack the Ripper case. Not only known to at least 3 victims, but situated just a few streets away from Mary-Jane Kelly's horrific death. John Waldron remained a constant presence through all of it. And in 1889, just a year after Mary-Jane was so horribly slaughtered, John died right there, within the very walls of the Ten Bells. His home, his livelihood, and the place he had devoted nearly his entire adult life to. The records show that, across the years, John's given age had varied, as he'd probably added a few years when first applying for the Ten Bells licence. But it seems at the time of his death, he was aged somewhere between 60 and 67. After his death, ownership of the pub passed to the Edward Rose and Sons Brewery. Managers came and went, none staying long enough to form the same lifelong bond with the building. And crucially, none matching the appearance of the apparition, always described by witnesses as an older man, dressed in dark Victorian clothes. Could Edward Waldron be the ghost? It seems unlikely when you think about it. He was the landlord for just a single year in what was then a new build. A fleeting chapter compared to John's almost 4 decades of connection to the building, its community, and even its tragedies. If a spirit were to linger there, surely it's far more likely to be the one whose entire life was woven into the bricks and floorboards of the pub. The one whose life ended there. Victorian landlord, John Waldron. But let me know in the comments if you agree with me. Who do you think the Victorian ghost is? Please, just don't say George Roberts. At the Ten Bells, sightings of the Victorian ghost aren't the only thing to cause fright. There are many other disturbances too. People report objects that move of their own accord, and doors that open or slam shut when no one is nearby. sudden drafts cut through still air, and cold spots seem to appear and vanish in the same instant. Staff have reported seeing a chandelier swinging when nobody was near it, and tell of hearing the food service lift moving between floors when the place is closed. It's the next set of ghostly phenomena that feels particularly dark and unnerving. Several witnesses have reported hearing the haunting cries of a baby, echoing through the upper rooms when no child is present. Sometimes, the sound is followed by a woman's soft sobbing. Other times, by a sudden, inexplicable silence. The story takes on an even darker turn in a number of documented histories and paranormal accounts. It is claimed that around 25 years ago, a sack of old-fashioned baby clothes was discovered hidden behind a water tank in the roof space. The garments were reportedly decayed, their fabric yellowed with age, and most disturbingly of all, they were said to be slashed and torn. No record has ever been found to explain whose they were, or how they came to be there. There seems to be no old newspaper reports or anything online to support the claims of such a gruesome finding. No photographs, no interviews, just accounts that this was found. Still, the frightful image endures. Those tiny garments, damaged and abandoned, their story unknown. Who put them there, and why? It's easy to see why some believe that the lonely cries of a distressed baby, said to echo through the upper rooms of the 10 Bells, might be somehow tied to that grim discovery. How very sinister, poor little one. But aside from a possible discovery of damaged baby clothes, are there any verifiable records of a baby having died while living at the 10 Bells? Actually, yes. John and Eliza Waldron's 5th child, Patrick, all on the 29th of July 1876, sadly died before reaching his 1st birthday. His death was registered in the second quarter of 1877, meaning that he was aged somewhere between 8 and 11 months old. Baby Patrick's middle name of Francis shared that of his mother's. Was there a special bond between mother and child? Is it Patrick's desperate cries that still echo through the 10 Bells today? Closely followed by the sobs of his grief-stricken mother, Eliza. There are also deeply troubling accounts of the sounds of depraved, ghostly laughter. Heavy footsteps are said to pace the empty floors once the last customers have gone. Were they there all along? Masked by the laughter, chatter, and music? staff described feeling a sudden shove between the shoulder blades as they climb the stairs to the upper floor. They turn around, assuming a colleague is playing a prank, only to find they are quite alone. All seem to agree that the 10 Bells has a peculiar energy all its own. Of all the spirits said to occupy the 10 Bells, one, in particular, draws the most speculation. It's the ghost of a dishevelled woman, seen near the bar or moving quietly among the tables. Witnesses describe her as wearing faded, tattered, old-fashioned clothing, her head bowed, her expression unreadable. Some are convinced that she is the ghost of Annie Chapman, Jack the Ripper's second victim, drawn back to the place where she spent her final hours. Others believe it could be his last, Mary-Jane Kelly, who, as we've seen, was also closely linked to the pub. But is she really one of these tragic figures? Or is it simply tempting to romanticise her by seeking to tie her to the pub's most infamous and legendary connection? Surely she could be one of countless long-forgotten women who met a premature death on the once menacing streets of Spitalfields. One who, like so many, once found shelter in the place. A pause in the endless drudge of her life. She would be no less fascinating because of it. To stand inside the 10 Bells today is to stand at a crossroads between two Londons, the living and the long gone. Now a place of fun, laughter, and easy conversation. It tastefully preserves its heritage, while offering little sign of the hardship and struggle for survival that once plagued patrons like Annie, Elizabeth, and Mary Jane. Yet every old building carries the weight of its history, and the hauntings said to afflict this famous drinking den seem to echo the harshness and cruelty of the world they once knew. These aren't, like some we've seen, souls returning out of loyalty, of love, or of duty, but lingering imprints, memories of a time when life itself was threadbare, and neglect, hunger, and suffering were everyday realities for the poor of Whitechapel. A time when pride and personal dignity were eclipsed by the simple need to stay alive. The shabbily dressed woman who stares at the floor, as though it's safer that way. The pitiful cries of a long-forgotten child. The ungodly laughter that chills those who hear it to the bone. And the watchful man in Victorian garb, who can't quite let go. Remaining tied to a time he can't see, has long since vanished. Lingering imprints, forcing us to confront the echoes of the past, drawing us ever closer to the raw truth of our history. In this sense, the 10 Bells and its ghosts are a vessel of memory as much as they are a pub. One that has perhaps seen just too much to ever remain silent.
Where shadows split the seam, a grin too wide, a whisper thin. The nightmare starts where dreams begin. Freddy's here, he's waiting near. Don't close your eyes, the end is clear. Finger knives that scratch the sky, he'll find you when you say goodbye. The clock ticks loud but never strikes. In his world, the dark ignites, he sings your name, a lullaby, and drags you under, cold and dry. Sleep is a door you can't unclose, he's there. He knows, he knows.